Every year, Six Flags looks at their 15 amusement park properties and decides who's going to get a new coaster. Once they make that decision, they need to look at their budget, the manufacturers they hire, and what coaster makes sense for the park. I normally like to make predictions based on reality, but this is not a prediction video. This is a spoiled brat coaster enthusiast dream video. I'm gonna put myself in Six Flags shoes and see what makes sense for each park based on what they need. And I'm throwing every other factor out, but still keeping this in the ballpark of reality. Not every park can get a Giga. Today, I'm going to identify each Six Flags park's biggest coaster gap. There are a few parks that are lacking kids coasters, like Six Flags St. Louis, but we're gonna exclude those from this video. I made a checklist of things that a complete park really needs, and if anything here is missing, then you have a gap that needs to be filled. Airtime, launch, wood, multi-looper, not on the track, spinner, standout coaster, and finally, any other minor fringe need. This may apply to parks that are super stacked and seem to have everything. Let's start on the East Coast and head west. Let's start with Floride, one of the weakest Six Flags parks, but they were granted a B&M Mini Hyper right before Six Flags went bankrupt. Goliath gives them a standout coaster and floater air. They have not one, but two inverted looping coasters, an SLC and a Batman clone, with Ednor and Vampire, so they destroyed that checkbox. They have a wooden coaster, Monster. It may not be good, but it's there. If you want to check the multi-looper box with their Boomerang, you could do that too. They did just lose their Intamin stand-up coaster Cobra, and their Vekoma looper, Super Menage. This park has no launch coaster and no spinner. If you want to cover both your bases, the Mach Extreme Spinner is the way to go. You want to be a little more realistic. They could get a more simple spinner from Gerstlauer or Maurer, and get an SNS air launch coaster like Max Force. That would fill the launch gap, and get a legit multi-inversion coaster into the park. Next up is Six Flags New England, one of my favorite parks in the chain, and home of the best 1-2 punch I've ever seen with Wicked Cyclone and Superman the Ride. So they smashed the standout coaster box, and this also takes care of the airtime box. They not only have a spinner in Pandemonium, but they also have the Joker, which I think could fill the gap of a spinning coaster also. They have an ancient wooden coaster in Thunderbolt. Riddler Revenge rides under the track, and so does Goliath when it's open. And their multi-looper is filled with Batman the Dark Knight. They could use a modern wooden coaster. Thunderbolt turns 80 this year, but there is one serious gap in the park's lineup, and that's a launch coaster. So, launched RMC wooden coaster. That would be amazing, but no. I hate to give the same thing to two parks in a row, but that's kind of what Six Flags does. I think an SNS air launch coaster, like Max Force, would be perfect here. Moving on to Great Escape, and you know what? Let's just give them a Max Force too. 6 coasters, and their last thrill coaster that wasn't a relocation was Flashback, their Boomerang, and that was in 1997. Their best coaster is Comet, a PTC Woody that used to be in Canada, and dates back to 1948. Does this count as a standout coaster? I'm gonna say no, but I will mark the airtime box, and obviously the wood box. Steam and Demon has 3 inversions, so I guess that counts as a multi-looper. No launch, no spinner, nothing under or on the side of the track, and most importantly, no true standout coaster. The pipe dream would be a B&M launch wing coaster, but more realistically, Six Flags. Give this poor little park an RMC Raptor. It needs something new, it needs something modern, and these aren't expensive. They're so mistreated there in upstate New York. For just 39 cents a day, you could pay off a Raptor in a little over 49,000 years. So Six Flags, just think about it, please. Let's go down to a park that's a little bigger, Six Flags Great Adventure. New York likes the Mach New Jersey, but Jersey has you beat with this park. El Toro is the standout coaster, the wooden coaster, and the airtime machine. Not to mention Nitro on the other side of the park. This delivers floater to contrast Toro's ejector. It has several multi-loopers, namely Bizarro and Green Lantern. They have the coaster under the track with Batman the Ride and Superman Ultimate Flight, and the world's second fastest coaster serving as their launch coaster, Kingda Ka. They don't have a traditional spinner, but they do have the Joker. Replacing Dark Knight with an actual spinner would be a step in the right direction. Before a park with all the boxes checked, we can start nitpicking. I thought about a coaster with a vertical drop, but Kingda Ka has that covered. This is their only launch coaster though, and it's a one-trick pony. Great Adventure could use a well-rounded launch coaster. This would be for Mach rides or Premiere. I'm thinking about something like West Coast Racers. This wouldn't all be about the launch, like Kingda Ka is. It would focus on the inversions, the airtime moments, and if it has a dual track, It could have interactive moments. This is the perfect fit, and it's practical. Heading down the drain to Six Flags America. This is a little less stacked. Superman Ride of Steel is a decent standout coaster, but they could do better. I will say it delivers some airtime, so it checks that box. Batwing and Mind Eraser give that experience under the track. Raging Cajun is also a good spinning coaster. Joker's Jinx has the launch and the inversions. Firebird chips in a couple also. And they have 2 wooden coasters with Wild One and Roar. So would you look at that? A pretty well-rounded lineup. None of these are great ways to check the boxes, but the boxes are checked nonetheless. I think they could benefit from a true standout coaster. One with better airtime and better inversions. They need to give Roar the RMC treatment. Even though I like Joker at Discovery Kingdom, which was fabricated from the same layout, I would hope that RMC could do something a little different at Six Flags America. Wild One is a better wooden coaster anyway, so keeping it as it is would serve the park well. And Roar is terrible, so this is a no-brainer. A park in a very similar position is Six Flags Darien Lake, as in, their standout coaster is exactly the same as Six Flags America's. This Ride of Steel is a little better. The lap bar is a little more comfortable, and it checks the airtime box. Moto Coaster is a decent launch coaster. Viper and Boomerang deliver the inversions. Mind Eraser hangs under the track, and Tantrum is a nice wildcard coaster that adds a lot to the lineup. Predator is their one wooden coaster, and it seems like it is or was slated to get GCI Titan Track this year to make it smoother. If this deal falls through, it would be a great RMC candidate. It's pretty unrideable in its current form. That would leave the park without a wooden coaster, but RMC Predator would be a great standout coaster, and this would get people to come to the park. If this does get Titan Track, we could go in a different direction. This park has no free spin or a spinning coaster, but you'll notice this is one of the rare Six Flags parks lacking a B&M. They already have coasters that mimic a dive, hyper, and invert, so I think this park could really use a wing coaster. Six Flags Over Georgia has one of the more solid lineups in the chain. Twisted Cyclone and Goliath could both be considered standout coasters, and they deliver different kinds of airtime, ejector and floater. Superman Ultimate Flight and Batman the Ride hang under the track. Blue Hawk is a really strong multi-looper, and so is Daredevil Dive, which also has the vertical drop as the cherry on top. Great American Scream Machine will knock the teeth right out of your head, but it's not a bad wooden coaster. No spinner, no free spin, but more importantly, no launch coaster. Whenever a park is missing a spinner and a launch coaster, I have to mention the Mach Extreme Spinner, but I think the perfect fit here is a launch coaster. I'm thinking something on the powerful side, even if it's not much of a ride, like an Intamin Accelerator, an SNS Air Launch, maybe even a Pantheon-style multi-pass launch. They have lots of rides with long layouts and inversions. I think their launch coaster needs to focus on force. Not minimum force, like Copperhead. I'm talking max force. Sorry. Six Flags Great America is possibly the most well-rounded park in the chain, if not in the whole country. Raging Bull and Goliath are good standout rides, though some may argue they could do better here. I get that. We'll come back to this. I'll give it a weak checkmark for now. These two deliver good airtime, along with Viper, and throw in American Eagle and Little Dipper, and you have an impressive 4 wooden coasters. Vertical Velocity and Max Force serve the park's launch needs. Joker covers the spinning. Demon and X-Flight have the inversions. They have 4 coasters under or around the track, including Superman Ultimate Flight and Batman the Ride. Yes, Great America checks all the boxes, but let's look at that standout coaster box. A B&M Hyper and an RMC Woody would be standouts at a lot of parks, but Great America is such an amazing park. It feels like it needs something better. My pipe dream is the RMC T-Rex. This extreme single rail coaster topping 300 feet would be a huge draw for the park, but since that doesn't exist yet, let's stay over 300 feet and go with an Intamin Giga. It's way different than Raging Bull. It could mix in the floater and ejector airtime, lots of speed, intensity, and it would be the headline coaster at the park. An Intamin Giga at a Six Flags park is laughable, but, you know, whatever. Six Flags St. Louis has 3 good unique wooden coasters, and 6 cloned or bad quality steel coasters, so definitely check that wood box. Pandemonium gets their spin on. Mr. Freeze has the launch. Batman runs under the track. Ninja bangs you around 4 inversions, so it does a decent job here across its 9 coasters. As for airtime, American Thunder has a little. Screamin' Eagle, maybe a little, but it's not great. And I don't think anything here can be classified as a standout coaster, even though people probably identified this park most with the Boss. I think an RMC conversion of the Boss would be world class, but maybe some retracking and Millennium Flyer trains would be cheaper, and that would preserve this beast. I think the coaster that could fill those final 2 gaps is a B&M Hyper. Pack the thing with airtime. Make it over 200 feet and a mile of track. The park could use another B&M that isn't a bat clone. And it's too bad that St. Louis never ended up with one, even when the chain was giving them away to parks like LaRon. Frontier City is my sad little home park with a total of 5 coasters. Not even enough to check all the boxes. The standout coaster is Diamondback, an Arrow shuttle loop. And even though it's a standout coaster for Frontier City, it's not a true standout coaster. It does have a little bit of airtime coming off its launch tracks, but again, not exactly an airtime machine. Same with the launch. Yes, it's a launch coaster, but it's more of a push than a launch. Wildcat is a halfway decent wooden coaster. Steel Lasso is a family coaster, but it does run under the track, and nothing has more than one inversion, so I can't check the multi-looper box. Nothing here even spins, so there's a lot of gaps here with a tiny lineup. In a park that hasn't gotten a ground-up thrill coaster in, well, it's never happened. Let's give Frontier City a true standout coaster. One that packs multiple inversions, ejector airtime, a vertical drop. All I'm asking for is an RMC Raptor. Just a cheap, measly RMC Raptor. It doesn't even have to be original. Just a run-of-the-mill Raptor that you can stick in the parking lot. I won't even complain that much about it being a parking lot coaster. If you're raising cash for a Great Escape Raptor, maybe you can ask for a few more nickels and help out poor little Frontier City also. I don't mean to make this personal, but help a guy out. I appreciate it, thanks. Six Flags Over Texas has a lot of coasters, but the lineup leaves you wanting more. Let's see how it does on the list. New Texas Giant is a decent standout coaster, but it could be better. I think it's a solid choice to check the airtime box. Mr. Freeze is the only launch coaster, but it does it well. Judge Roy Scream is the only Woody left, and that's something that could be better. Pandemonium and Joker more than cover the spinning. Batman puts riders under the track, and Titan is useless. Just kidding, but not really. Titan, Shockwave, Mr. Freeze, and Batman give this park a collection of intense coasters, and that's hard to match anywhere. Batman is the only B&M and the only coaster with more than 2 inversions, so the park is kinda lacking there. I think there's a coaster that could deliver a different kind of launch, multiple inversions, ejector airtime. How great would a mock multi-launch coaster be here? You have the intense shuttle launch coaster in Mr. Freeze, so something with a launch, but more focus on the complete inversion-filled circuit would be great. This park is lacking an inversion-filled coaster where you're sitting on the track. Six Flags Fiesta Texas doesn't have a ton of coasters, but I love their lineup. They have 2 standout coasters. Which RMC is better is up to you. I prefer Iron Rattler over Wonder Woman, but I know a lot of you don't. Both have the airtime. Before Iron Rattler, their standout coaster was a very impressive B&M Floorless, the Inversion Machine Superman Krypton coaster. Pandemonium and Batman the Ride have the spinning. Goliath is under the track. Poltergeist has the launch. They're really set, except for one thing. They don't have a wooden coaster. You could head down the road to ride Texas Stingray if you really wanted to, but don't tell Fiesta Texas how to live their life. They could use a GCI twister that jumps on and off the wall, just like Rattler. They don't have a ton of space, but they could make it work. There is some room behind Pandemonium. They lost Rattler almost 10 years ago, but I'm sure they're not really missing it. It looked like a terrible ride, but a modern wooden coaster would complete the lineup. If they didn't really want to do it because Texas Stingray is so close, a B&M Hyper would also be a really good fit here. South of the border at Six Flags Mexico, Medusa Steel Coaster serves as a standout coaster. And you have this, plus Superman El Ultimo Escape as your airtime machines. Medusa's 3 inversions could be considered a multi-looper, even though that's kinda weak. But there's also Batman the Ride, which serves as a coaster that hangs riders under the track and flips riders over 5 times like any other SLC. This is another Six Flags park with a spinner and a free spin, with Joker and Wonder Woman. 2 glaring gaps in the lineup, no wooden coaster and no launch. So obviously, give them a lightning rod and move on. Next park is Six Flags. Medusa was their only Woody, and they RMC'd it, but I think the park would benefit much more from a launch coaster. They could also use another sit-down coaster with lots of inversions. Mach Ride's launch coasters are kinda weak. If this is gonna be your only launch coaster, then you have to make it pop. So how about an Intamin Blitz? They could get something like Taiga. It's a complete ride that packs a punch with 2 launches, and I think it would be awesome here. On to California. Six Flags Discovery Kingdom has been adding a new coaster just about every year, though they haven't been all that great. Their standout coaster is Joker, a solid standout, but it could be better. But considering the park has a 150-foot height limit, there isn't much they can do that would have great stats. Joker does have solid airtime. Medusa is a great inversion machine. Kong is under the track. Batman the Ride was a good spinning replacement after losing Pandemonium, and they're adding Sidewinder Safari this year, and that'll also spin. The Flash and Superman Ultimate Flight check the launch box. And Harley Quinn? We don't talk about Harley Quinn. Ever. Just like Six Flags Mexico and Fiesta Texas, they RMC'd their only wooden coaster and are left with none. The park should hire GCI and let them do their thing. I know the GP looks at the hybrid conversions and sees them as wooden coasters, But they're not, so wise up. Last but certainly not least is the park with the most coasters in the world as of the time I'm recording this, Six Flags Magic Mountain. Twisted Colossus is the park's only real airtime machine, and it serves as a standout along with X2, which you could claim as a spinning coaster, though I think eventually the park could really use a normal spinner. They have a pair of B&M multi-loopers, plus Viper. Batman, Tatsu, and Ninja all run under the track. Superman, West Coast Racers, and Full Throttle all launch the train and offer different experiences, though none of these launches are all that powerful. With 19 coasters, it's surprising that Apocalypse stands as the only Woody, but that's a solid representative. All boxes checked with ease, so let's nitpick and bring in a fringe need. This park lacked airtime for a very long time, and then Twisted Colossus came along, and suddenly we were overloaded. This is all ejector airtime. Magic Mountain needs a floater machine. A B&M Hyper may look kinda weird with a 235-foot Goliath right there, so let's kick it up a notch and give Magic Mountain a B&M Giga. You see, look, I only gave one of these away. I think that's fair. A 300-foot coaster that has sustained floater airtime moments would be perfect, and that pretty much describes all of them. Fury, Leviathan, and Orion. It's not a realistic option for the park, but I mean, you can imagine, right? That's gonna do it for each park's coaster gaps, and which option would be the best to fill them. It's Six Flags, so these parks can expect to get free spins, RMC conversions, small launch coasters, and anything else $10 million or less, especially if you're outside the major markets. We'll see how creative the chain gets to fill all these gaps in their budget. Let me know what you think of these picks, and what you would choose for any of these Six Flags parks if you disagree. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're new here and love coasters and wild predictions, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any more content just like this. If this video does well, I'll put a video together for the Cedar Fair chain also. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.